And away we go, episode 1241 of the Al Galdi podcast. It is Monday, January 19th, 2026. It is Martin Luther King Jr. Day, 2026. There are several Washington, D.C. area sports items of note regarding Martin Luther King Jr. Day. Among those items, the external fixator. Do you remember the external fixator? Because when I think about Martin Luther King Jr. Day as it relates to Washington, D.C. area sports, I think of the external fixator. Martin Luther King Jr. Day 2019, January 21st, 2019, the Washington Wizards 101-87 win over the Detroit Pistons at Capital One Arena. Among those at the game was then Washington Redskins quarterback Alex Smith, giving us our first truly good look at him since he suffered his broken right fibula and broken right tibia in the Skins' 23-21 loss to the Houston Texans at FedEx Field on November 18th, 2018. Of course, it then came out that Smith had dealt with infection of multiple surgeries for the broken right leg, and it was in seeing Alex Smith at this Wizards game in a suite at Capital One Arena that we saw him with a massive brace and cast on his lower right leg and with two crutches at his side, and it turned out that what he had on his right leg was called an external fixator. And we all learned what an external fixator is. The reveal of the Alex Smith external fixator happened on Martin Luther King Jr. Day 2019. Now, MLK Jr. Day is about a few things other than Alex Smith's external fixator, but that is a very notable Washington, D.C. area sports item regarding MLK Jr. Day as it relates to Washington, D.C. area sports. Hello and welcome to this Monday installment of the Al Galdi podcast. Next segment, a conversation with a good friend of this podcast, Washington Commanders insider Ben Standig of Last Man Standing on Substack. Ben will give us the latest in the Commanders' coaching staff shakeup of multiple developments over the last few days, including where we are in the search for a defensive coordinator, the pros and cons of Commanders defensive coordinator candidate and Minnesota Vikings defensive coordinator Brian Flores, whether the offensive coordinator hire or defensive coordinator hire is more important for Dan Quinn keeping his job as Commanders head coach, what the team has in its new quarterbacks coach, DJ Williams, and more. Lots of good stuff with Ben Standig next segment. And also on the show, I'll talk Washington Capitals, Washington Wizards, and college basketball. As never forget, this is the podcast that follows Washington, D.C. area sports so that you don't have to. Do the Caps need to make a big trade? They appear to need something. Just 7-10-4 over their last 21 games, a 5-2 loss to the Florida Panthers at Capital One Arena on Saturday night. I'll discuss the game and also notable comments from Caps Senior Vice President and General Manager Chris Patrick during a press conference this past Friday afternoon. Our rebuilding and tanking Wizards are back to properly tanking. 6 consecutive losses since going 5-2 over a 7-game stretch. Late night on Friday night, a 128-115 loss at the Sacramento Kings. Late night on Saturday night, a 121-115 loss at the Denver Nuggets. And we in college basketball over the weekend had another loss for Georgetown, but wins for Maryland, number 16 Virginia, and Virginia Tech. Maryland in this 2025-2026 regular season now is 1-6 in the Big Ten. Yes, at last, a Big Ten win for the Terrapins. 96-73 over Penn State at Xfinity Center in College Park, Maryland on Sunday afternoon in a game in which 5'11 Kansas transfer David Diggy Coit went off. 43 points, made history in multiple ways. I'll explain. Georgetown for this regular season now is 1-6 in the Big East. The Hoyas lost their 5th consecutive game, a 64-62 loss to number 3 UConn at Capital One Arena on Saturday afternoon. And Hoyas head coach Ed Cooley during his postgame press conference made some comments that have gotten a good bit of attention. I'll give you my take on those comments. Before we get to feedback, the Washington Nationals, they on Sunday morning announced having agreed with starting pitcher Cade Cavalli on a one-year contract with a club option for the 2027 season, avoiding salary arbitration. You can hit me up on X at Al Galdi. You can email me the Al Galdi podcast at yahoo.com. From District Sports Talk on X on our conversation on Friday's show, episode 1240 with former NFL running back, legendary former Maryland running back, and current sideline analyst for radio broadcasts of Maryland football games, Lamont Jordan, who is excellent talking Commanders, writes District Sports Talk. Really good stuff from Lamont Jordan. I loved his bluntness. Thank you for that, District Sports Talk. Lamont was awesome. Terrific analysis. Hard-hitting opinions. Was great to catch up with him. Email from Stanley Evans on Commanders General Manager Adam Peters. Right, Stanley? I don't want this to come across as overreactive or alarmist because that's not where I'm at, but I've been thinking more about how much influence Adam Peters actually had on the 49ers roster construction and how that translates to what we're seeing now. I'm sure AP collaborated closely with John Lynch, and I'm also sure the 49ers roster wasn't nearly in the state ours was when Peters arrived. That context matters. Still, what Lynch and that front office accomplished, making the playoffs and winning games with backups, is extremely noteworthy. That kind of depth doesn't happen by accident. It has only been 2 drafts, so I don't want to get ahead of myself. At the same time, this upcoming draft feels massive for AP. If he nails it, the conversation changes quickly. If not, it's fair to ask whether his reputation was more a product of the 49ers ecosystem, Lynch, Shanahan, and an already solid foundation than Peters' own independent ability as a roster architect. So far, I see contributors and promising players, but I don't yet see anyone who truly feels game-changing. That doesn't mean they won't develop into that, but eventually, great GMs hit on cornerstone players who clearly alter the trajectory of a team. The Dan Quinn dynamic is also interesting. Publicly, AP has said coaching hires are up to DQ, but there are signs that AP is not simply hands-off. His push for his draft picks to get more playing time, if true, suggests real conviction, either that the talent is better than advertised, that it wasn't being developed properly, or both. That doesn't mean necessarily dysfunction, but that does suggest that AP may have lost some faith in certain decision-making and is asserting himself more. All of this makes the upcoming season fascinating. There are real storylines to watch, whether AP lands a true cornerstone, whether his previous picks take noticeable leaps, and whether the coaching staff maximizes the roster or exposes its limitations. If this draft and season hit, any doubts fade quickly. If not, these questions become unavoidable. I'm not sounding the alarm, just paying attention. And this feels like the point where we'll start getting real answers. All the best, Galdi. Hope you had an awesome weekend. Thank you for the email, Stanley. Excellent email. For what it's worth, the belief is that Adam Peters, as San Francisco 49ers assistant general manager, did play a major role in the team's player personnel, as in a role larger than most assistant GMs play. That is what has been said by people in the know. Now, maybe those people were wrong, but that is what has been said. Peters worked for the Niners January 2017 to January 2024. He was their vice president of player personnel January 2017 to February 2021. He was their assistant GM February 2021 until becoming Commanders GM in January 2024. I totally agree that the results of his first 2 NFL drafts as Commanders GM have been underwhelming. I do believe that there's time for that to change, and I completely agree that the 2026 NFL draft is a huge draft for Peters as Commanders GM. The great heads of football operations in the NFL have killer drafts. Philadelphia Eagles executive vice president and general manager Howie Roseman has killer drafts. Seattle Seahawks president of football operations and general manager John Schneider has killer drafts. Peters as Commanders GM hasn't yet had what we can label as a killer draft. Hopefully that changes. The Nace Law Group, accident and injury lawyers. It has been a Washington, D.C. institution for decades. If you feel that you've been wronged, if you think that you've been wronged but aren't sure, contact the Nace Law Group, accident and injury lawyers, and schedule a no-obligation appointment. Call 202-902-7611 or visit WashingtonDCInjuryLawyers.com and tell the Nace Law Group that Al Galdi sent you. Founded in 1979, the Nace Law Group offers fierce advocacy on behalf of medical malpractice, birth injury, and personal injury victims. Led by the great Chris Nace, the Nace Law Group is focused on providing exceptional care and counsel for those who need such things the most. The Nace Law Group fights for what it believes in, you, your family, and your future. You with the Nace Law Group have an experienced advocate on your side. The Nace Law Group has secured millions of dollars in verdict and settlement amounts for clients to better enable them to care for themselves and their families. Call 202-902-7611 or visit WashingtonDCInjuryLawyers.com and tell the Nace Law Group that Al Galdi sent you. That's 202-902-7611 or WashingtonDCInjuryLawyers.com, and make sure that you mention that Al Galdi sent you. The Nace Law Group, Accident and Injury Lawyers. We now know of another member of the Washington Commanders' revamped coaching staff. We on Friday had reports that the team is hiring Danny Etling as assistant quarterbacks coach. This is his first official coaching job in the NFL or college football. Two major connections for Danny Etling to the Commanders. Etling was a quarterback for Purdue for the 2013 and 2014 seasons. The Commanders' offensive coordinator David Blau was a quarterback for Purdue for the 2014 through 2018 seasons. Etling was with the Atlanta Falcons during the 2019 season, for the 2020 offseason, and for part of 2020 Falcons training camp. Commanders head coach Dan Quinn was the Falcons head coach during all of this. Danny Etling was a quarterback for LSU for the 2015 through 2017 seasons. He sat out the 2015 season due to NCAA transfer rules. Remember those? And then was LSU's QB1 for the 2016 and 2017 seasons. He, at LSU, did not overlap with Commanders quarterback Jaden Daniels. He was LSU's QB1 for the 2021 through 2023 seasons. Etling was taken by the New England Patriots in the 7th round of the 2018 NFL Draft. Spent time with multiple NFL teams, but never played in an NFL regular season game. By the way, regarding David Blau, so he entered the NFL in May 2019 as an undrafted free agent with the Cleveland Browns. His time as an NFL quarterback included him being on the Detroit Lions practice squad during the 2023 season, working with then Lions offensive coordinator Ben Johnson. Well, Ben Johnson, now the Chicago Bears head coach, did a press conference this past Friday afternoon. We, during that presser, had this back and forth.
Off the path a little bit, David Blau is going to get an opportunity to be the coordinator in Washington. I know you've got some experience around him. Pretty rapid rise for him. What left an impression on you?
Yeah, no, he's got a bright future as well. He's really smart, has a natural way of connecting with everybody, coaches and players alike. And I know he's highly respected, not just from me, but also obviously that Washington staff. They found tremendous value in him as well. I think he'll do an outstanding job in that role. I think he's really smart. He's having played quarterback. He's got that inward feel of how to help elevate that position, and I think he'll be able to do that in a play calling role going forward. So I think he'll be one of those young guys that gets a head job before you know it.
What kind of advice do you pay forward in terms of doing it for the first time at a young age and just trying to get your feet on the ground?
Yeah, I mean, I think as anything, we all have our strengths and our weaknesses, and you try to accentuate your strengths, and at the same time surround yourself with people that'll help you with your weaknesses. And so he knows what those are, and I'm sure he's doing the best he can to make sure he puts himself in a good spot. And he's a good person. I think that's where it starts with him, and I think that's going to resonate with everybody he's around.
So high praise from Ben Johnson for David Blau. Ben Johnson, of course, a head coaching candidate for the Commanders in the 2024 offseason in what ended up being quite the saga, saying that David Blau will be a head coach before we know it. So the Commanders' search for an offensive coordinator did not last long, right? The team on January 6th parted with offensive coordinator Cliff Kingsbury. The team on January 10th announced having promoted assistant quarterbacks coach David Blau to offensive coordinator. The Commanders' search for a defensive coordinator, however, is a different story. The team on January 6th parted with Joe Witt Jr. off head coach Dan Quinn on November 10th, having announced having taken over for Witt as defensive coordinator. But here we are on this episode for Monday, January 19th, and the team has not yet filled its defensive coordinator vacancy, and the expectation is that a hiring may take another few days, if not longer. those who the Commanders reportedly have interviewed for their defensive coordinator vacancy: Las Vegas Raiders defensive coordinator Patrick Graham, Kansas City Chiefs defensive line coach Joe Cullen, Tennessee Titans defensive coordinator Denard Wilson, Seattle Seahawks defensive passing game coordinator and defensive backs coach Carl Scott, Minnesota Vikings defensive coordinator Brian Flores, and fired Arizona Cardinals head coach and former Philadelphia Eagles defensive coordinator Jonathan Gannon. We had been waiting on what would happen with fired Atlanta Falcons head coach Raheem Morris and Falcons defensive coordinator Jeff Ulbrich, but we now know what is happening with Ulbrich. He is staying with the Falcons, who late night on Saturday night announced the hiring of fired Cleveland Browns head coach Kevin Stefanski as Falcons head coach. NFL insider Ian Rappaport of NFL Network, he on NFL Network's Game Day Morning on Sunday reported that Ulbrich is remaining as Falcons defensive coordinator. Now we'll see what happens with Raheem Morris. So the belief is that Morris will be a candidate for the Commanders' defensive coordinator job if he doesn't get another head coaching job. The Falcons on January 4th announced having fired Morris as head coach. Both Morris and Ulbrich worked with Dan Quinn during his time as Falcons head coach. A lot to take in with this Commanders defensive coordinator search. By the way, this past Sunday, January 18th, marked the one-year anniversary of the Commanders' 45-31 win at the Detroit Lions in the divisional round of the NFL playoffs as Washington advanced to an NFC championship game for the first time since January 1992. A few things have changed since then. It is a pleasure to welcome back to the Al Galdi podcast Commanders insider Ben Standig of Last Man Standing on Substack. You can read his work at lastmanstanding.substack.com. He also is the host of the Last Man Standig podcast. You can follow Ben on X at Ben Standig, and Ben is joining us for the first of two conversations on the podcast this week. Ben, good to talk to you. If the Ben Standig of January 2026 told the Ben Standig of January 2025 all of the things that were going to happen with the Commanders over the next 12 months, what would the Ben Standig of January 2025 have thought?
That you can't have everything go right 2 years in a row. I mean, obviously the injuries were a lot. The McLaurin holdout situation was, I think, a bit unexpected, but so was maybe the way they handled some of the roster building in terms of just getting older and missing some depth. But I vividly remember saying to myself out loud toward the end of last season, man, this is a lot of fun. Are we sure they're good? It was just we all knew the defense was just hanging in there for the most part. And, the offense was spectacular, but, again, winning those 5 games in a row with coming under the last play from scrimmage, nobody does that, goes 5-0. Again, kudos to that team. But if future me said, hey, this is what's about to happen, I'd be like, oh, okay, things are about to, the breaks are just not going to go their way this year.
It, of course, is just crazy to look back on where we were with the Commanders 12 months ago versus where we are now. You mentioned the Commanders roster building. You on your Substack have been doing a series of pieces in which you examine the team's initial 53-man roster for the 2026 season of what is going on / has gone on in the 2025 season. The latest piece in this series is out on Monday. What can you tell us about this latest piece?
Yeah, so the point when I did this, I started it right before week 1. I mean, I knew that we would eventually get to 2026. I also wanted some kind of content hedge in case things did go wrong. So we're already looking ahead, and unfortunately that really became the case. But really the point was just over the course of a year, how does a position group evolve? Or, running back is a good example, right? When they trade Brian Robinson, you're like, wow, it's Austin Eckler, who's, how much time does he have left? And then a bunch of, who knows? Even though, Bill has started to get some hype and all that, to now go to the end of the year. And I think this is one position where, look, they could certainly use more help. But the evolution of Chris Rodriguez and Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, I think if they want to say, hey, we can't solve all of our problems in one offseason, which is realistic, we need to spend more money at other positions, that maybe this group is good enough. Perhaps you upgrade at the Jeremy McNichol spot so you have a more of a legitimate third down presence because the other two don't really catch passes. But it was sort of like this type of situation to see could guys evolve. Whereas, say, at receiver, Jalen Lane and Luke McCaffrey do not give you that type of confidence to say we have two guys that are ready to step up. Other than Terry McLaurin, that receiver room needs a lot. So it would have been cool if Lane and McCaffrey had done more. And there's a world where maybe putting Lane at slot with Deebo Samuel possibly not coming back, maybe that helps. Maybe McCaffrey, we just have to accept he can be a guy who makes big plays as the fifth receiver, but he shouldn't be viewed as a 2 or a 3. But the point is just that over the course of the year, the opportunity for these guys to develop was there, and it didn't happen. And this is kind of what I'm going through with all the positions and had all year. This is, I think, part 5, is just to kind of keep seeing where is this roster evolving or perhaps devolving in front of our eyes.
Excellent. And people can check out that piece at lastmanstandig.substack.com. With the Commanders' defensive coordinator search, we get that we're likely in a holding pattern until more NFL head coaching vacancies get filled. That said, if we are in fact in a holding pattern, does that not say that the Commanders' top choice for defensive coordinator comes from the group of people on whom the team presumably is waiting? Raheem Morris and or Brian Flores and or Jonathan Gannon. Morris, Flores, and Gannon in this 2026 NFL coaching cycle reportedly have gotten head coaching interviews.
Well, obviously we don't, I don't know what's in Dan Quinn's mind. I think the big question for this group, for the defensive side, was, does Dan Quinn want to keep his general scheme, or does he think, hey, it needs a complete overhaul? It's not just who's calling the plays, it's all of it. Now, I don't think we definitively know the answer to that. However, what we do know is that on offense, he's going with a 30-year-old guy who's never been a coordinator. As the head coach, it seems reasonable that he's going to have to spend more time keeping an eye on the offense. Not saying he's going to call plays or come up with the game plans, but he's going to have to, at least initially, you would think, be somewhat more involved over there because of that change. So do you want to have another massive change on the other side of the ball where it's a completely different group? I'm sure people would say, well, if it's Brian Flores, sure, let's do it. I don't know why Brian Flores would come here unless it's just money, because we know Washington does not have the talent to be really exciting. So that's the question. So based on that, I would assume that anybody in Quinn's coaching tree, so Ulbrich, Raheem Morris, maybe Al Harris is the defensive backs coach with the Bears, would be guys to probably at the top of the list. Harris would be, I don't know, because he would be a first-time coordinator as well. So again, 2 first-time coordinators might be a bit more inexperienced than Quinn would want to go with. I think the problem, though, is I don't know if either Ulbrich or Morris is going to be available, because Ulbrich may be staying in Atlanta. The Falcons ownership group has not let him interview with other teams, and they may quickly have a new coach and he could stay there. And Raheem Morris, it sounds like if he doesn't get a head coaching job, he might go to broadcasting. So if those guys aren't available, then I really think it's a bit of a crapshoot. They have interviewed other guys, Jonathan Gannon, a former Cardinals head coach, and some other sort of lesser named defensive coordinators or coaches. But if it's not Ulbrich or Morris, man, I feel like it becomes very wide open.
I'm going to ask you to read Dan Quinn's mind again. So for many, if not most Commanders fans, and for many, if not most people who cover and or talk about the team for a living, the realistic dream get for the team at defensive coordinator is Brian Flores. Do you think that Quinn looks at the situation that way, or do you think that his realistic dream get is someone with whom he has worked, like, say, Raheem Morris?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if that's the dream or that's just what would make him feel more comfortable, but I would imagine, again, Blau is not an unknown as far as the person goes because he's been here for 2 years, but he is an unknown as far as calling plays and how that's going to work out. And also, this is the same argument I made for Jordan McGee playing middle linebacker this year. We can talk all we want about practice and what you think he can do, but until he actually does it, until, the lights are on and you have to make the calls in real time, I don't know. So I just think with all of that, the defensive coordinator would be ideally somebody he can be like, okay, I know this is good. Now you could say, well, Flores would be good, but if it's new, it's always overstated. It's not like they're going from speaking English to speaking Japanese or something, but it is still different. And Dan Quinn himself would have to kind of adjust and learn to this, which minimizes his role a little bit as far as a defensive-minded head coach. And he does, I think, want to be a bit of that CEO type, but at the same time, I don't know. Flores might be a bit of extreme. Now, again, don't get me wrong. All things being equal, he may be the best defensive coordinator in the league. His personality is also not for everybody. So I think that would be tough. And like I said, in terms of options, Flores will have many. I just don't see why Washington would be high on his list other than if they said, hey, we'll blank check. What do you want?
Yeah, money, and if Brian Flores is drawn to being a defensive coordinator for a team with high upside on offense via having a QB1 like Jaden Daniels. Much more with Ben Standig in moments. Nova Fireplace and Stove. It is Northern Virginia's go-to expert for fireplaces. Transform the look and feel of your home and increase its value by visiting Nova Fireplace and Stove in Woodbridge, Virginia, or by visiting novafireplaceandstove.com, and make sure that you mention that Al Galdi sent you for $25 off any service. Nova Fireplace and Stove will make your fireplace elite. And here's what else Nova Fireplace and Stove offers: gas fireplace service and repair, chimney cleaning and brickwork repair, generator installation, panel replacements and water heater repairs, smoke detectors, security lights, and more. Nova Fireplace and Stove is a family-owned, fully licensed and insured company with over-the-top credentials, gas and electrical master's licenses, a Class A contractor's license, and a long list of 5-star reviews to back all of this up. Every job includes a free in-home estimate. And for listeners of the Al Galdi podcast, Nova Fireplace and Stove is offering $25 off any service. Just mention that Al Galdi sent you. Nova Fireplace and Stove only works in Northern Virginia and thus knows the homes, the codes, and the people. Your satisfaction is 100% guaranteed. Nova Fireplace and Stove in Woodbridge, Virginia, or novafireplaceandstove.com. And make sure that you mention that Al Galdi sent you for $25 off any service. We're talking with Commanders insider Ben Standig of Last Man Standing on Substack. You referenced the personality of Brian Flores. The Ryan Fitzpatrick comments about Brian Flores. Ryan Fitzpatrick, of course, a quarterback for Washington for one season, the 2021 season, in which he played in one regular season game, suffered a career-ending right hip subluxation in the Washington football team's 2016 loss to the Los Angeles Chargers at FedEx Field on September 12th, 2021. Anyway, he, prior to signing with Washington as an unrestricted free agent in March 2021, was a quarterback for the Miami Dolphins for the 2019 and 2020 seasons. Brian Flores was the Dolphins head coach February 2019 to January 2022. Fitzpatrick on the Fitz and Wit podcast in an episode that came out more than a year ago, December 2024, had some not so nice things to say about Flores.
Oh, is that right? Okay. I thought it was more recent. I didn't realize that. Okay.
Yeah, the comments were made more than a year ago, but the comments still are relevant. Here they are. Ryan Fitzpatrick on the Fitz and Wit podcast in an episode that came out in December 2024 on Brian Flores.
Brian Flores has been a really hot name, and I think the further removed we get from his tenure in Miami, the more people kind of forget about how that ended, and the better his name becomes. You know, he went to Pittsburgh and got to learn under Mike Tomlin and see how he led, and now he's been in Minnesota with Kevin O'Connell. I think the interesting thing with Brian Flores, when I think about him and being able to play under him for a few years, is which version of Brian Flores are we getting? And in year one with Miami, take you back to that year, I mean, Miami got rid of every good player they had. And that was the jokingly called the tank for two a year. But I'll tell you, halfway through that year, we hadn't won a game yet. And there was a shift in the way that he was approaching his job. He was likable. He was relatable. He demanded a lot out of the players, but he was also able to get the best version of his players. And I really appreciated him for that. But as his tenure went on in Miami, he kind of became unrecognizable. A lot of the staff he brought over from New England, that was where, you know, he cut his teeth in the NFL, was there for 15 plus years as an assistant. But I think he's going to have a really hard time if you're interviewing him as a head coach. I think in the interviews, he'll be likable, he'll be relatable. But when people say, okay, give me somebody from Miami that coached under you as a reference so we can talk to them, I think he burned a lot of bridges there. I think he alienated himself from the entire staff. Instead of what you were just talking about, having the humility to ask questions, to collaborate. I think by the end of his time there, he became a dictator. He ruined a lot of those relationships that he built up through the NFL. and his ego grew so big that there wasn't any room for anyone else. And so that was why he got released at the end of his tenure in Miami. I hope, we love Mike Tomlin as a leader, and I know you have some experience with Kevin O'Connell, that whole collaboration thing. I think that's, McVay and the people that come up through that system, for Flores to be able to watch Kevin for a year. I hope that helps him.
Yeah.
Because he certainly needs some help in that department of, not necessarily being a dictator and having a collaboration with the whole staff and having a lot of different voices and how they put together a game plan.
So, quite the evaluation of Brian Flores by a trusted person in Ryan Fitzpatrick. How much stock do you put in those comments from Fitzpatrick?
I put in a fair amount. Look, obviously, all of this is people change, people improve, people evolve, people devolve. So, I don't know what necessarily the Brian Flores, who was the head coach, how that compares to to this current version of Brian Flores. But I don't really get the sense he's all of a sudden become Mr. Warm and Fuzzy. I think he is still can be a tough guy to work for at times. Again, the success is apparent, but on a daily basis, is that necessarily the best fit? I don't know if it necessarily is. I mean, and sometimes when you hear these rumors or you hear these stories from a guy like Fitzpatrick or anecdotes, you're like, all right, I wonder about that. But then I have my own experience in that I've never met Brian Flores. Well, actually, technically did once. I was walking in Mobile for the Combine or for the Senior Bowl, and I was with Nicky Jabvala, and he just walked by us. And first we're like, is that Brian Flores? And yes, it was. Anyway, but I did my agent survey in 2022, and and one of the questions was something along the lines of who's the toughest front office to deal with, something like that. And multiple agents didn't name the GM of the Dolphins. They named Brian Flores. And I said, well, just to be clear, you're naming the coach, not the GM. They're like, yeah, he's the one who's, I think, got the bigger voice, and he is a tough hang. And they were doing that from, I believe, as I recall, their own perspective, but also what they're hearing from their clients. So when I've started to subsequently hear more about this, I'm like, okay, this connects with what I'd heard. So yeah, I think it's a tough call. Now, look, do I think that the Commanders need some kind of a bad cop in there? I do, actually. I do think that they need more of that. I mean, look, the players, I think that one thing you can say is they played hard for Dan Quinn all year, but it probably wouldn't hurt to have somebody who's, going to put a little bit of fear into people more than, I'm not saying Quinn doesn't, but he's also the guy that connects with them on this real human level. And, it's a little bit harder to completely put the fear into somebody when you're also there to hug them in their worst time. So I don't know. I just think with Flores, there's a lot of questions. And I think to me, he's a better risk for a team that is right there. If they were coming off of last year, right, and this was the conversation for whatever reason, Joe Witt was out, that to me would have been interesting. Ooh, can Brian Flores take this group that just made the championship game up a level? Now at 5 wins with the talent deficit, I don't know if that's the risk that I think makes complete sense for them.
From the standpoint of Dan Quinn's job security, which coordinator hire this Commanders offseason is more important, the offensive coordinator hire or the defensive coordinator hire?
It's a great question because if again, we look back at the Rivera era and just point to, oh my God, it was so terrible. Jack Del Rio's defenses, 2 of the 4 years were really good, like top 10 in categories. So this group hasn't had, with Quinn, has not been good in either year yet. This year went, horribly wrong. So you'd like to think that a defensive-minded coach probably needs to have at least 1 of 3 years be at least middle, On the other hand, the other side of the ball is Jaden Daniels. So everything is going to revolve around that. So if somehow the David Blau, I mean, look, it was a huge call to move on from, forget the Blau part of it that he's inexperienced, just to decide to move on from Kingsbury. I understand why, I wrote about it before the news got out as to why I think this could be something to keep an eye on. But at the same time, if they just brought Cliff back, nobody would be like, oh my God, what a stupid move this is. And then to go to Blau, so it's a huge risk he's taking there. And therefore, I feel like it's probably ultimately that side. And again, also like the personnel, he's not picking the groceries. He's asked to cook the meal, but not pick the groceries. So it's not completely on him, but I would still say the offense.
As you and others reported this past Friday, the Commanders are hiring Danny Etling as assistant quarterbacks coach. As you and others reported this past Wednesday evening, the team is hiring Atlanta Falcons quarterbacks coach DJ Williams as quarterbacks coach. DJ Williams, the son of Doug Williams, who is Redskins quarterback, was the MVP of Super Bowl 17 and who still works for the team. Doug Williams is the Commanders' senior advisor to the general manager. There are some fans calling the hiring of DJ Williams a nepotism hire. Look, anything's possible, but number one, the Commanders off the season that they just had can't afford any nepotism hires. Every hire that they make needs to be about hiring good football people. Number two, DJ Williams, per you, is well regarded. You this past Wednesday evening at a post on X said this on DJ Williams, quote, enthusiastic comments from sources, not dad, about his work, capabilities, end quote. What can you tell us about DJ Williams?
Yeah, he worked the last 2 seasons in Atlanta with Kirk Cousins and Michael Penix, and you can say what you want about where Penix's development is, and obviously, we all know about Kirk Cousins, but he was coming off the injury. But I just heard from including from people who were in that building that just they were impressed with his work with those quarterbacks. I don't know exactly, like I can't get into the overall specifics about he's really good at this aspect or not, but just that, look, he's been in the league for 6 or 7 years. This isn't a guy who the nepotism thing. We've seen it here plenty. We've all seen it, but it's I think he's shown that he's worthy of being hired by somebody. It's not just that he was good here. So, again, I think that nepotism thing, it doesn't make any sense. Not to mention, with all due respect to Doug Williams, he doesn't have a big role here. This, if Dan Quinn's kid became the quarterback coach or Adam Peters, okay, maybe we have a different conversation. But Doug Williams, I don't see why they would do that. It's a great story, but I don't think that has anything to do with it.
Yeah, all due respect to Doug Williams, but he is the Commander's senior advisor to the general manager. He does not have a big enough role in football operations to where the general manager, to whom Williams is serving as senior advisor, Adam Peters, would feel the need to placate Williams. Commanders insider Ben Standig of Last Man Standing on Substack. Ben, thanks, and we'll talk soon.
Pleasure, man. Thanks, Al.
All right. Z-Biotics pre-alcohol probiotic drink is the world's first genetically engineered probiotic. It was invented by PhD scientists to tackle rough mornings after drinking. Here's how Z-Biotics pre-alcohol probiotic drink works. When you drink, alcohol gets converted into a toxic byproduct in the gut. It is a buildup of this byproduct, not dehydration, that's to blame for rough days after drinking. Well, Z-Biotics pre-alcohol probiotic drink produces an enzyme to break down this byproduct. Make Z-Biotics pre-alcohol probiotic drink your first drink of the night. Drink responsibly, and you'll feel your best the next day. Enjoy drinks with friends. Enjoy drinks while watching the big game, and don't sacrifice your productivity for the next day. Start your night with Z-Biotics pre-alcohol and wake up ready to show up strong at work, clear-headed, focused, and back to business. Go to zbiotics.com/Galdi and you'll get 15% off your first order when you use the promo code Galdi at checkout. Plus, Z-Biotics pre-alcohol is backed by a 100% money-back guarantee, so there's no risk. Also, subscriptions are available for maximum consistency. That's zbiotics.com/Galdi. Use the promo code Galdi at checkout for 15% off. The Washington Capitals on Monday afternoon are beginning a 6-game road trip comprised of 6 games in 11 days. 5 of the games are out west, and perhaps now is a good time for a lengthy road trip. The Caps now are just 7-10-4 over their last 21 games. A 5-2 loss to the Florida Panthers at Capital One Arena on Saturday night. The Caps in the NHL's 2025-2026 regular season now are 24-19-6. The Caps on Saturday night in the second period held a 2-1 lead. They then lost the the rest of the game 4-0. Now, the Caps do remain banged up. Forward Justin Sordiff did not play for a third consecutive game due to an upper body injury, and he's now on injured reserve. The Caps on Friday evening announced having placed Sordiff on injured reserve, and the corresponding roster move was the Caps recalling winger Ivan Miroshnichenko from their AHL affiliate, the Hershey Bears. Winger Tom Wilson did not play for a seventh consecutive game due to a lower body injury. The Caps on January 9th announced having put him on injured reserve, and center Pierre-Luc Dubois remains out since getting injured in the Caps' 3-1 loss to the New York Islanders at Capital One Arena on Halloween. He on November 7th underwent surgery to address injuries to his abdominal and adductor muscles, so was expected to miss 3 to 4 months. The Caps in this loss to the Panthers on Saturday night lost the puck possession battle. They had 24 shots on goal to the Panthers' 31, and per natural stat trick had 46 5-on-5 shot attempts to the Panthers' 58, though the distribution of 5-on-5 high-danger shot attempts was about even, 10 for the Caps, 11 for the Panthers. The Caps' starting goaltender was Logan Thompson. He stopped 26 of the 29 shots on goal that he faced. Another bad game for the Caps on special teams, just 1 for 2 on the penalty kill, 0 for 1 on the power play. The Caps' 2 goals were second-period even-strength goals by defenseman Jacob Chychrun, giving him 17 goals in this regular season. Also, he had a team-high 8 total shot attempts, including a team-best tying 3 shots on goal. Caps defenseman John Carlson had 2 assists, giving him a team-best 29 assists in this regular season. Yes, it is defenseman John Carlson who is number 1 on the Caps in assists. He had a team-best tying 3 shots on goal, and he was number 3 on the Caps in 5-on-5 shot attempt percentage for the game per natural stat trick at 55.26. The Caps with Carlson on the ice in 5-on-5 situations in the game had 21 shot attempts versus allowing 17 shot attempts. But a really bad game for the grade 8, Alex Ovechkin. He served as the Caps' top-line left wing. He had no points, had just 2 total shot attempts, including just 1 shot on goal. He registered a team-worst tying plus-minus rating of -3, and he committed a penalty, a second-period delay game puck-over-glass penalty, did have a team-high tying 3 hits. The Caps' healthy scratches for this loss to the Panthers on Saturday night were winger Sonny Milano and defenseman Declan Chisholm and Dylan McElrath. Also, the Caps on Sunday morning announced having loaned forward Brett Leeson to Hershey. Here was Caps head coach Spencer Carberry during his post-game press conference late night on Saturday night on whether this 6-game road trip for the Caps is coming at a good time.
Yeah, and I think part of what our team is completely different than it was. Our lines are completely different. D-core is remained intact for most of the season, goaltending obviously, but you know the thing that I point to is our forward group as a whole has changed so significantly, and the line combinations have changed so significantly. That's probably you're looking at different guys every night, and so Miro comes into the lineup. We move him to a spot where he's playing with Nick. That's a new look, right? And so can we hopefully get into some consistency with our lineup? Ideally, yeah. And then maybe that helps that getting out on the road. We'll see. That always can help when you get out and play on a long road trip and see if that can spark something and a little bit of continuity, chemistry with the group.
So you take a step back, where are we with the Caps? They, over their first 28 games of this regular season, went 17-9-2. The Caps, over their last 21 games, are just 7-10-4. Well, Caps Senior Vice President and General Manager Chris Patrick, he did a press conference on Friday afternoon. The presser lasted for a while, lasted for about 25 minutes. The first exchange of the presser was this exchange between Caps insider Tarek El-Bashir of Monumental Sports Network and Patrick.
So, Chris, what are your overall assessment of the first 48 games?
Yeah, I mean, definitely different. I guess track to get here than last year. Whereas last year felt like health-wise we were always in a good spot, and a lot of things went our way. And this year, right away, felt like right away. Halloween, we lose Pierre-Luc, which was a big loss to the group. That kind of started the adversity, and we had some guys step up and do a really good job. Justin Sordiff, I think, has done a really good job filling in part of that gap. Obviously, Stromer and Nick Dowd have helped as well as the other centers. then to lose guys like Alexei and Tom for longer stretches, losing Jacob for a few games, and then Sortif, who had filled in pretty well. It just makes it hard. It's hard for Carves to put together a lineup where he's trying to have lines that can match up against another team's top line while also giving other lines ability to generate offense. It's just made it difficult for our team to be a dominant team every night. But I think on the bright side is we've hung in there really well through losing a guy like Pierre-Luc, and we're still right there standings wise, and the league is extremely tight, as has been written a lot about by all of you guys. So we're still in it, and hopefully we can get healthy here. Hopefully Tom gets back soon, Justin gets back soon. Pierre-Luc's obviously skating, so if we can get healthy and stay healthy, we'll be in hopefully a good spot to make a push.
So the Caps at 24-19-6 have 54 points, good for fourth place in the 8-team Metropolitan Division. The Caps have the second best goal differential in the division, plus 14, but the Caps are closer to last in the division than they are to first in the division. The first place Carolina Hurricanes have 64 points. The last place New York Rangers have 48 points. The 2026 NHL trade deadline is on Friday, March 6th at 3 p.m. Eastern. Chris Patrick on Friday afternoon made it clear that the Caps regarding that deadline are buyers. We on Friday afternoon had this exchange between Tarek El-Bashir and Patrick.
What does the trade market look like right now, and are you guys actively pursuing an addition?
Yeah, I definitely actively pursuing an addition. Like I've seen written out there again in the media, and I think is an accurate description with as many teams in the mix right now, playoff-wise, as there are. I think teams are very much trying to figure out their timing and what they need to do and when they want to do it, and how aggressive they get, or do they stand pat. But yeah, for us, we view our biggest need as kind of a higher end, skilled winger, and those aren't always available at the deadline. It's when they become available. So we're going to keep trying to pursue those guys if they're out there. And again, on the trade side, I've said this in the past, it's not necessarily harder for us, but like we have a group of prospects that we really like, and a lot of teams really like as well. So it gets to the point of, if we can get a team to move off the top of our prospect list, then maybe there's something to be done. But we're not gonna trade away some of our top guys that we think are going to be a huge part of the team for the next 10 years for something that we don't think is going to have the impact we need it to have. So yeah. We're actively looking at whatever's out there, and hopefully we can find something here before the deadline.
Yeah, pretty blunt comments from Chris Patrick. He, regarding the 2026 NHL trade deadline, is looking to buy. What I wonder is, if the Caps keep losing, will he instead be looking to sell? Next up for the Caps, at the Colorado Avalanche, Monday afternoon at 4. Well, we have reached the numerical midpoint of the Washington Wizards 2025-2026 regular season. 41 games down, 41 games to go. The Wizards' record is 10-31, including 6 consecutive losses. The tank by our Wizards is going well. 2 games over the weekend, 2 losses. Late night on Friday night, a 128-115 loss at the Sacramento Kings. So the Wizards trailed for all of the second, third, and fourth quarters. Late night on Saturday night, a 115 loss at the Denver Nuggets. So the Wizards overcame a 12-point first quarter deficit, but blew a 7-point fourth quarter lead. No Bilal Coulibaly in either game. He did not play in each game due to lower back stiffness. Still no Trae Young. He now has not played in each of the Wizards' 5 games since being acquired by the team via trade on January 9th. He's dealing with a right knee sprain and a right quadriceps contusion. Cam Whitmore now is done for the season. The Wizards this past Thursday afternoon announced that Whitmore had started the recovery process for a diagnosed venous condition and would miss the remainder of the season. Chris Middleton did not play in the loss at the Kings on Friday night due to right knee injury management, but did play in the loss at the Nuggets on Saturday night. And Tristan Vukcevic was not available for either game over the weekend due to left knee soreness. So the Wizards lately have been missing a number of players, but what matters the most, even more than the losing for the purpose of the tank, is that key young guys are doing well. The loss at the Kings on Friday night, 4 key young players for the Wizards, Alex Sarr, Keyshawn George, Bub Carrington, and Trey Johnson, combined for 63 of the Wizards' 115 points. The loss at the Nuggets on Saturday night, those 4 key young players for the Wizards, Sarr, George, Carrington, and Johnson, combined for 62 of the Wizards' 115 points. So though Johnson scored just 4 points, but good weekends for Alex Sarr and Keyshawn George, who have been the 2 biggest bright spots for the Wizards this season. The loss at the Kings on Friday night, the Wizards' leading scorer was Alex Sarr. He, in 27 minutes, 43 seconds as a starter, had 19 points, 4 rebounds, and 3 assists versus 2 turnovers. He went 8 for 12 from the field, all twos, and 3 for 4 on free throws. The loss at the Nuggets on Saturday night, Alex Sarr, in 28-15 as a starter, had 16 points, 8 rebounds, and 1 assist versus 2 turnovers. He went 7 for 12 from the field, all twos, but just 2 for 7 on free throws. And Keyshawn George, the loss at the Kings on Friday night, George, in 23-50 as a starter, had 15 points, 8 rebounds, and 3 assists versus no turnovers. He went 0 for 4 on threes, but 6 for 8 on twos, and 3 for 3 on free throws. The loss at the Nuggets on Saturday night, the Wizards' leading scorer was Keyshawn George. He, in 31-52 as a starter, had 29 points, 7 assists versus 1 turnover, 5 rebounds, and 3 blocks. He went 5 for 8 on threes, just 5 for 12 on twos, 4 for 5 on free throws. So the Wizards' offense in that loss at the Nuggets on Saturday night was not good. The Wizards went 11 for 30 on threes, just 33 for 66 on twos, and just 16 for 29 on free throws. What was good for the Wizards was their offensive rebounding. The Wizards lost despite having 17 offensive rebounds to the Nuggets 4, and thus 27 second chance points to the Nuggets 4. Nuggets superstar Nikola Jokic, the Joker, he did not play on Saturday night due to a left knee bone bruise, but the Wizards' defense still was quite bad. They allowed the Nuggets to score 121 points, go 14 for 35 on threes, and 31 for 50 on twos, and have 31 assists versus 13 turnovers. So the Wizards allowed 3 Nuggets players, Jamal Murray, Tim Hardaway Jr., and Peyton Watson, to combine for 93 of the Nuggets' 121 points. Murray scored 42 points. And speaking of standout performances by players against our Wizards over the weekend, how about former Wizard Russell Westbrook in that loss at the Kings on Friday night? Westbrook, in this, his age 37 season, in 31-03 as a starter, had 26 points, 6 assists versus 4 turnovers and 2 rebounds. He went 6 for 9 on threes, 3 for 5 on twos, and 2 for 2 on free throws. Russell Westbrook still going strong, at least against the Wizards. Next up for the Wizards, home to the Los Angeles Clippers, Monday afternoon at 3. Well, what the Wizards are doing in tanking and rebuilding hopefully will deliver long-term success. Short-term thinking does not deliver long-term results. A good process does. Science does, especially when it comes to skincare. And the best product for skincare is OneSkin. OneSkin formulas are powered by the OS1 peptide, a patented peptide built on longevity science proven to target aging at the cellular level. OneSkin supports the cellular repair that keeps your skin looking and feeling better as you get older. This is not about adding extra steps to your routine. No, this is about swapping in smarter steps. Born from over 10 years of longevity research, OneSkin's OS1 peptide is proven to target the cells that cause the visible signs of aging, helping you unlock your healthiest skin now and as you age. And for a limited time, OneSkin is making it even easier to stay consistent with up to 30% off your first 3 subscription orders when you use the promo code GALDY at oneskin.co/Galdi. That's oneskin.co/Galdi and use the promo code GALDI. oneskin.co/Galdi, up to 30% off with that promo code GALDI. And after your purchase, you'll be asked where you heard about OneSkin. Please support our show and say that Al Galdi sent you. And let's talk college basketball. Maryland's 4-game losing streak is over, and it ended in quite the way. A 96-73 win over Penn State and Xfinity Center in College Park, Maryland on Sunday afternoon. The Terrapins in the 2025-2026 regular season improved to 8-10 overall, including 1-6 in the Big Ten. So the Terps no longer winless in the Big Ten. Now, they beat maybe the only Big Ten team that's worse than Maryland, Penn State, which for this regular season now is 0-7 in the Big Ten. But Maryland won. It won the first half 56-26, led for 36 minutes, 47 seconds of the game's 40 minutes. And the story of the game, by far, was Maryland's leading scorer for the game, 5'11" Kansas transfer David Diggy Coit. He went nuclear. He, in 39 minutes, 29 seconds as a starter, had 43 points and 4 assists versus 1 turnover. He went 9 for 15 on threes, 5 for 8 on twos, and 6 for 8 on free throws. He made history in multiple ways. Coit became just the second Maryland men's basketball player ever to score at least 40 points in each of at least 2 games in a regular season, joining the immortal Gene Shue in the 1952-1953 regular season. Coit set a new record for most points by a Maryland men's basketball player in a regular season game at Xfinity Center, which opened in October 2002, and he broke his own record for this, so he now owns the top 2 scoring performances by a Maryland men's basketball player in a regular season game at Xfinity Center. And Coit's 9 made threes tied a program record for most made threes by a player in a regular season game. Maryland as a team went 18 for 34 on threes, setting a program record for most made threes in a game. David Diggy Coit. He this season has been up and down, but he now has scored at least 30 points in each of 4 games in this regular season, 41 points in Maryland's 95-90 overtime home win over Mount St. Mary's on November 19th. 31 points in Maryland's 101-83 home loss to then number 2 Michigan on December 13th. 30 points in Maryland's 88-71 loss at USC late night this past Tuesday night, January 13th. And now 43 points in this 96-73 home win over Penn State on Sunday afternoon. The opening exchange of the postgame press conference of Maryland head coach Buzz Williams on Sunday afternoon was this exchange between Gene Wong of the Washington Post and Williams.
Buzz, you've been a part of a lot of basketball games in your career. Where does Diggs' performance today rank in terms of some of the greatest you've ever seen?
I'd have to think about it. I don't know how many games I've been a head coach, probably over 600. He has video game tendencies. I think I've said that publicly before. He has an ability to score at his size that's uncommon. He can gain space because he's always played as an undersized guard, and his ability to make shots, particularly off the dribble, is rare. And so it was fun to watch. I'm happy for him. I'm happy for our team. And to some degree, we needed what he did today, similar to a couple of other games that have been in Xfinity since we've lived here.
Much needed win for Maryland in what increasingly has looked like a lost season. All-time performance by Diggy Coit. Next up from Maryland at number 13, Illinois, Wednesday night at 7. Georgetown. It now has lost 5 consecutive games. The Hoyas in this regular season fell to 9-9 overall, including 1-6 in the Big East, with a 64-62 loss to number 3 UConn at Capital One Arena on Saturday afternoon. What a win this could have been for Georgetown. It overcame a 10-point first-half deficit and in the second half held a 4-point lead at 40-36, but the Hoyas then allowed UConn to go on a 24-13 run for a 7-point lead at 60-53. Georgetown's offense was not good. The Hoyas scored just 62 points, went 5 for 14 on threes, went just 20 for 43 on twos, generated just 9 free throw attempts and going 7 for 9 on free throws, and had 13 assists versus 13 turnovers. But Georgetown's defense was good. The Hoyas held UConn to just 5 for 26 on threes and just 16 for 32 on twos. Did allow UConn to generate 24 free throw attempts, although UConn UConn went just 17 for 24 on free throws, and the Hoyas did force just 6 UConn turnovers. But still, overall, Georgetown's defense, impressive given how good UConn is. Georgetown out-rebounded UConn 40-34. A big part of that, 7'1" St. John's transfer Vince Iwuchukwu. He, in 30 minutes as a starter, had 12 points and 14 rebounds, including 6 offensive boards. He did go just 6 for 13 from the field, all twos, and 0 for 1 on free throws. The Hoyas are like knocking on the door of having a decent season, but they keep doing just enough to lose. This was the opening statement of the post-game press conference of Georgetown head coach Ed Cooley on Saturday afternoon.
Great Big East game. You know, it's just the one thing I can tell you is I believe in our group. I trust our group. I've seen us get better without a win. I like our competitive spirit. Right now, the ball's just not bouncing our way in certain instances. You know, you look at, I think we've lost 6 games in the Big East up to this point, of which every single one, probably with the exception of St. John's, it's the last minute, last 2 minutes, last half second. So I don't want our men to lose their confidence. I don't want our men to doubt what we're doing, because we're right there at the doorstep. For whatever reason, we're not getting over the hump. But with the competitive spirit that I'm feeling from our group, our preparation, I'm proud of our group, and I really, really believe in this group, right? I thought we went head-to-head the last 3 games in particular. We just haven't had the fortune of getting over the hump, and that takes some time. We have to learn how to win, you know what I'm saying? But I thought that was our best defensive effort since I've been the head coach here. I thought we were elite defensively, right? Again, give them credit. Like, this season's indicative right now. We cause a loose ball, we cause a scrum, the ball lands right in their best shooter's hand with no one around him. I'm like, ain't that some shit? You know what I mean? Like, damn. It's just one of those, we're having one of those years up to this point. But I believe in this group, 1,000%. And right now our men are a little bit wounded emotionally. So it's our job, stay together, stay the course. We have 2 games next week, both on the road. They'll be very competitive games. They'll self-scout tonight. Villanova plays St. John's. Nobody's going to feel sorry for us. But I want our men to know how proud I am of our effort, in particular, the last 3 games. I saw us get better without the result of a win. Like, there's no consolation prize. Credit them. Caravan, I thought we did a great job on him. Ball, I thought Demery was the player of the game. I thought he controlled the game, for them in the half court in critical situations. Other than that, I thought it was a Big East game, great Big East game. If they're the number 2 team in the country, which they definitely are, 1,000% are, they should be number 1 in the country. They've earned it. Their DNA of winning really, really showed tonight. So hats off to them. We move on, pick our heads up, take tomorrow off, say a prayer for us tomorrow on Sunday, get back to it, celebrate MLK Day on Monday, and let's have a dream for Tuesday.
All right, so Ed Cooley, as is usually the case, with a lot to say. He has received criticism for what he said toward the end of his post-game press conference on Saturday afternoon. The quote that made its way around X, quote, "There's a lot worse happening than Georgetown losing a basketball game around the world, around our city, around our community. You know what we are? We're blessed. We're blessed to be 9-9. We're blessed to be 1-6 in the league. It could be a lot worse," end quote. Now, when I first read that quote, I didn't love it. Not that Ed Cooley is wrong in what he said, but what he said can always be said. Like, at the end of the day, this is sports. And so, yeah, there in the world always are a lot worse things happening than a team losing a game. But if you listen to what Cooley said in its entirety, what he said to me does come off better than that quote that made its way around X. We on this podcast play, by far, the most key audio in Washington, D.C. area sports as compared to any other podcast. And what we do is try to give you the audio in its proper context, not like 10 or 15-second snippets that can be misinterpreted. So judge for yourself. Here was the last exchange of Ed Cooley's post-game press conference on Saturday afternoon, and you'll hear the exchange in its entirety.
Coach, I know it's been a challenging season, but this team has played really hard the whole time.
Oh man, have we played hard!
And has never quit. How have you been able to get the team to do that?
I think it's the character of the group. I think it's really the character of our men. not giving up, not woe is me, not feeling like, okay, it's not the end of the world. This is what I do feel. We're blessed to do what we do. Like even walking around, like we've lost 4 or 5 games at home in a row in the Big East. That sucks. It does. End of the day, we have our health. We have our families. We're very fortunate to do what we do. So when you're having a season like this, lean into what we appreciate. I appreciate being a coach here. I appreciate being able to tell people I thank you and come on, let's keep fighting together. We're all in this together. Our community's in this together. It's a lot worse happening than Georgetown losing a basketball game around the world, around our city, around our community. I'm not trying to deflect anything, but my appreciation and gratitude to have an attempt to coach these young men to be better at what we do is an unbelievable honor. Unbelievable honor. Yeah, we lost. Folks, we're this, we're that. You know what we are? We're blessed. We're blessed to be 9-9. We're blessed to be 1-6 in the league. Do we like it? No. But when you see us fighting like that, that's a lot to be proud of as the coach. So it could be a lot worse. Could be a lot worse. Could be a little bit better, but it could be a lot worse. So let's keep perspective on what we're trying to do. Sucks, but you know what? I'm going to go home, hug my daughter, get something to eat, watch some film, prepare for Villanova. That's perspective.
Okay, so again, at the end of the day, this is sports. And so there, in this world in which we live, always or a lot worse things happening than a team losing a game. But in hearing what Ed Cooley said in its entirety, he did provide some context, and what he said, at least to me, wasn't that bad. Next up for Georgetown at Villanova, Wednesday night at 7. Number 16, Virginia continues to roll. The Cavaliers in this regular season improved to 16-2 overall, including 5-1 in the ACC. With a 72-68 win at SMU on Saturday afternoon. Not an easy win. The game featured 13 lead changes and 5 ties. Each team's largest lead was a 7-point first-half lead. But UVA's defense was good. The Cavs held SMU to 5 for 13 on threes and just 21 for 48 on twos. UVA's offense was mixed. The Wahoos went 12 for 31 on threes and 10 for 12 on free throws, but just 13 for 29 on twos. So the Hoos did have 18 assists versus 11 turnovers. 40 of UVA's 72 points came from just 2 guys, Malik Thomas and Testa Ritter. 6'5" San Francisco transfer Malik Thomas, he in 32 minutes, 46 seconds as a starter, had 23 points, 11 rebounds, including 4 offensive boards, and a game best plus-minus rating of plus 11. He went 6 for 10 on threes, so just 1 for 4 on twos and 3 for 4 on free throws. And 6'9" Belgian true freshman Testa Ritter, he in 28:09 as a starter, had 17 points and 6 rebounds, including 4 offensive boards. He did also have no assists versus 3 turnovers. He went 1 for 2 on threes, just 4 for 10 on twos, but 6 for 6 on free throws. Next up for Virginia, a big game, home to number 14 North Carolina, Saturday afternoon at 2. And a nice win for Virginia Tech. It, in this regular season, improved to 14-5 overall, including 3-3 in the ACC, with an 89-76 win over Notre Dame at Castle Coliseum in Blacksburg, Virginia on Saturday afternoon. Tech led for all of the second half. Tech shooting was good, 7 for 20 on threes, 20 for 33 on twos, 28 for 32 on free throws. Tech's defense was mixed. The Hokies held Notre Dame to just 6 for 24 on threes and generated 13 Notre Dame turnovers, but allowed Notre Dame to go 21 for 37 on twos. But this still was a convincing win in which Tech head coach Mike Young played just 7 players. 73 of Tech's 89 points came from just 4 guys: Toby Lowell, Amani Hansberry, Ben Hammond, and Jalen Bedford. 6'8" Toby Lowell, he in 29:09 off the bench had 22 points and 11 rebounds, including 3 offensive boards. Did have no assists versus 2 turnovers. He went 0 for 1 on threes, 4 for 5 on twos, and 14 for 18 on free throws. 6'8" West Virginia transfer Amani Hansberry, 31-25 as a starter, 21 points, 6 rebounds, including 4 offensive boards, 3 steals, 2 assists versus 2 turnovers, and a game best plus plus-minus rating of plus 24. He went 0 for 1 on threes, 6 for 8 on twos, and 9 for 9 on free throws. 5'11" Ben Hammond, he in 32-41 as a starter, had 16 points, 2 steals, and 2 rebounds. He went 3 for 6 on threes, 3 for 5 on twos, and 1 for 1 on free throws. And 6'4" UNLV transfer Jalen Bedford, he in 30-18 as a starter, had 14 points and 4 rebounds. Did go just 2 for 7 on threes and just 4 for 8 on twos, and did not attempt a free throw. Tech remained without 6'5" Tyler Johnson. He did not play for a 6th consecutive game due to a left ankle injury. Next up for Virginia Tech at Syracuse, Wednesday night at 9. And that'll do it for you and me for now. Keep the feedback coming. You can hit me up on X at Al Galdi. You can email me the Al Galdi podcast at yahoo.com. Tuesday show, episode 1242. We'll have plenty for you on the Washington Commanders. Also on Tuesday's show, I'll talk Washington Capitals and Washington Wizards. The Caps are at the Colorado Avalanche Monday afternoon at 4. The Wizards are home to the Los Angeles Clippers Monday afternoon at 3. Have a great rest of your Monday, and I'll talk to you on Tuesday.
Brian Flores has been a really hot name, and I think the further removed we get from his tenure in Miami, the more people kind of forget about how that ended, and the better his name becomes.
Some things in life are just made for each other. Peanut butter and jelly, macaroni and cheese, Modelo and college football. College football season is Modelo season, and the season has officially kicked off. The Modelo Recruiter is back in action, looking to reward full-time fans who give their all for their team and their school week in and week out. If you're listening to this, you've been recruited. So lace them up and get out there. And don't forget to make time for a well-deserved ice-cold reward, because college football wouldn't be the same without you. So grab yourself a Modelo and enjoy, the official beer sponsor of the College Football Playoff, Modelo.